Have you ever been browsing the web and noticed that a lot of websites kind of feel the same? You know, the buttons, the layouts, the way the navigation bar works, they often seem to share a common design. Well, that is definitely not a coincidence. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on Bootstrap, the web's secret blueprint that has quietly shaped a huge chunk of the internet we all use every single day. And when I say huge, I really mean it. Just look at this number. According to W3Techs, which keeps track of this stuff, 19.2% of all websites use Bootstrap. That's almost 1 out of every 5 sites on the entire internet. We're talking everything from tiny startups to massive corporations. A single framework is the backbone for millions and millions of web pages. The scale is just wild. So what is Bootstrap anyway? Well, it's a CSS framework. And the absolute best way to think about that is with this analogy. Imagine building a website from scratch. It's kind of like trying to sculpt a car out of a raw block of clay. You have to create every single little piece yourself. A framework like Bootstrap, on the other hand, is like being handed a Lego kit. You get all the essential pieces right out of the box: buttons, forms, navigation, and you just snap them together to build your site way fast. Now, to understand why this idea of a pre-built toolkit was so revolutionary, we have to go back to its origin story. And believe it or not, that story starts inside one of the biggest tech companies in the world, right when it was in the middle of its explosive growth phase, Twitter. See, in the early days, Twitter's development was, let's just say it was the Wild West. You had different teams using their own tools, their own styles, and the result was total chaos. Designs were all over the place, and it was a complete nightmare to maintain. So to fix this, they started an internal project called Twitter Blueprint. The whole idea was to create a single shared library of code and design patterns just to make sure everything looked and worked the same way for a change. But as they were building it, the creators, Mark Otto and Jacob Thornton, had this big realization. As Mark Otto later said, "We saw ourselves build something much more substantial than another internal tool." They knew what they had on their hands wasn't just a fix for Twitter's internal mess. This was a solution that developers everywhere could use. So they made a really critical decision. They changed the name from Twitter Blueprint to Bootstrap, and on August 19, 2011, they released it to the entire world as a free, open-source project. And that was the moment an internal tool started its journey to becoming a global phenomenon. But just releasing it was only the beginning. You know, the web moves incredibly fast. To stay on top, to stay relevant, Bootstrap had to evolve, constantly. And this timeline really shows you how much it adapted. Back in 2012, right as smartphones were taking over, version 2 introduced responsive design, which lets sites look great on any device. Then, just a year later, version 3 went mobile first, a huge shift in thinking that meant designing for phones first. Fast forward to 2018, and version 4 was a major rewrite, using modern tools like Flexbox, which made creating complex layouts so much easier. And then in 2021, version 5 made sites even faster by ditching an old library called jQuery. All of this constant evolution is what's kept Bootstrap at the heart of web development for so long. So let's break down how it actually helps developers build pretty much anything a whole lot faster. All right, at the absolute core of Bootstrap is its legendary 12-column grid system. The idea is actually super simple. Just imagine every web page is divided into 12 invisible vertical columns. You can then tell any piece of your content exactly how many of those 12 columns it should take up. Want a sidebar that's a third of the page? No problem, just tell it to take up 4 columns. It's an incredibly powerful system for creating clean layouts that just automatically work on any screen size. And then you have the components, that Lego kit we talked about. Need a navigation bar, a pop-up box, an image slider? Bootstrap has all of them and more, pre-built and ready to go. So instead of a developer spending hours coding a drop-down menu from absolute scratch, they can just pop one in a few minutes. It's a massive time saver.
Okay, so you might be thinking, if everyone uses the same pieces, don't all the websites look identical? And that's a fair question, but thanks to modern customization, not at all. The latest version of Bootstrap uses something called CSS variables. See that little piece of code? It lets you define a style, like your main brand color, in just one place. Then, if you want to change it, you just update that single variable, and poof, the change happens across your entire site, instantly.
And remember that big change in version 5? Yeah, dropping jQuery was a really big deal. For years, jQuery was this helper library that made websites interactive. But modern JavaScript, what people call vanilla JavaScript, can now do all that stuff on its own. By cutting out this dependency, Bootstrap got leaner, faster to load, and way easier to maintain. It's a perfect example of how it keeps up with the times. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, Bootstrap did way more than just create a tool. It created a shared language for developers. By giving everyone a standard grid and a universal set of parts, it solved the exact problem it was born to fix: inconsistency, not just inside Twitter, but for the whole web. It made building websites faster, more collaborative, and honestly just more consistent for all of us. But of course, the web never stands still. New ideas, new tools, and new philosophies are always popping up. Bootstrap solved a massive problem for its era, which leaves us with one final big question. As things keep changing, what's the next big problem in web development? And what will the tool that solves it, the next Bootstrap, even look like?